Greetings, Culture Warriors. This is Jeff Vieira, author of Culture is Everything, with another dispatch from the front. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about a pandemic story. And as always, we'll look at that through the lens of culture and cultural values and see if that doesn't give us a deeper perspective on it. This one comes from Microsoft News, originally from CNN. It's entitled, "Heartbreaking Photo Shows Hospital Staff's Caring Message to a Family Who Lost Their Father to Coronavirus," by Lauren M. Johnson and Paul P. Murphy. A family got the heartbreaking news of their father's death from coronavirus as they were trying to lift his spirits with signs outside his hospital window. However, despite their grief, they decided to continue encouraging the staff who had worked to care for him. Renee Johnson, 65, contracted coronavirus in a nursing home while trying to recover from some health issues, daughter Angela Denault said. When he started having trouble breathing, he was moved to Catholic Medical Center in Manchester, New Hampshire. That's when the idea for the sign started. Johnson's son, Kevin, spray painted a sheet that said, "We love you, Dad, and we miss you, Dad." "My brother is the one that started it, and it just became infectious and contagious for us all to find new ways to show my dad we were close to him even though we weren't there," Denault told CNN. At first, Johnson couldn't see the signs from the window, but as he got progressively worse, he was moved to a room that had a window with a park view. The family spent hours a day out in the park holding up signs of hope and encouragement for their father and the staff treating him. "We decided to tape the sign to the railings for the nurses so the signs could stay out there continuously even after we left," Denault said. The nurses and the doctors and staffs were just so responsive to us being out there. They were making hearts in the windows, waving to us, and it actually brought hope to them. One of the nurses went down out of her PPE gear twice a week to spend some time with the family. When their father died on May 17th, the staff inside called the family, who was gathered in the park, to tell them the news. Shortly after, the nurse posted signs on his window that read, "He is at peace. We are so sorry." The nurse and staff were communicating with us the whole time. The nurses felt like this was it, the final goodbye, Denault said. "We would have loved to be by our dad's side, but if we couldn't, we are extremely thankful that these compassionate, loving staff took our place for us." The family captured a photo of the notes, and the heartbreaking message spread on social media. Denault said the response has been overwhelming, and she didn't share the picture to gain sympathy, but for a very specific purpose. "Let's give these frontline workers a huge shout out. They're human just like us. They have families just like us. It's all about paying it forward, giving back to them, appreciating them." The family even started a GoFundMe page in order to give back to the frontline workers who were with their father till the end. They said they plan to bring the hospital staff care packages or specialty cupcakes with the money, depending on how much is raised. They may even try to get a local band to come and do a concert for the staff. Well, Denault said they feel nurses and staff are part of their family now. "We truly cannot thank them enough," Denault said. "They extended so much love towards us and so much compassion during a heartbreaking all of us. I feel it will never be enough to show how much we appreciate them." Okay. So not a terribly unusual situation during this pandemic, in that a loved one is quarantined away where their family cannot reach them to comfort them. And so they're relying upon health workers to provide all the comfort they can. This particular family found a way to at least provide some remote comfort to their dying father. But for any of us who have lost a parent, lost a father, you know how much it means to them and to you to be present when they pass. Our parents bring us into the world. They're here when we're born. They're here for us all through our childhood, all through our lives. And they sacrifice for us that whole time. They comfort us. They take care of us when we fall down. They brush our tears away. They bandage our wounds. And they help stand us on our feet again. And with all the trials and tribulations in life, it's a great comfort even well into adulthood, to be able to rely on your parents for assistance, for guidance, for their wisdom. I well remember one of the first things that struck me after my father passed was, I guess I'm on my own now. I used to talk to him at least once a week, well through adulthood. And like so many other children have found, he got smarter and wiser every day that passed, at least in my eyes. I was able to be with him uh, at his death, and it meant the world to me in terms of being able to uh, grieve and move on with life after his passing, but also in a very important way, knowing that I discharged my duty to him in his final moments on the planet. Was that enough to repay all that he did for me in my life? No. But it's been a source of pride in these many years since, and it's been 17 years now since his passing, that I was able to do right by him. This particular hospital is Catholic. The family is probably Catholic. And as a Catholic, I can tell you that the church places tremendous emphasis on how we leave the world. We have a sacrament that's known as extreme unction or last rites, the anointing of the sick, where a priest will come to the dying person's bedside or the critically ill person's bedside, anoint them with holy oils, hear their last confession, and then prepare them for their death. It's extremely important because in Catholic theology, if we die with unconfessed mortal sin on our conscience, serious sin, we won't be saved, we won't go to heaven, we go to hell instead. And so not just for the gravely ill person, but also for their family, it's very important that that sacrament be administered. My father was a lapsed Catholic for many years. We got him last rites because of how important that sacrament was to him and us. I wasn't even Catholic at the time, but we knew enough about it to know what the right thing to do was. We called a priest up, and despite the fact that my father wasn't an active Catholic and hadn't been for a long time, he came, administered the sacrament to him, and my father was still conscious. It gave him some considerable comfort. I don't know what passed between them, but he was comforted by it. One of the tragic factors in this pandemic response has been that even priests have not been allowed, and in fairness, in some cases, have not really sought to be allowed to administer those sacraments, that viaticum, to their dying parishioners. I've read stories about priests who enter these hospital wings to do just that, where patients who are not even Catholic beg them, stop them on the way to just get a blessing, and the comfort that that provides, as they die. Moreover, the Catholic Church has a long history of dealing with pandemics and plagues. One of the great saints of the church, St. Charles Borromeo, was famous during the Black Death for leading a processional, so a group of the faithful marching behind the Eucharist and singing, praying. He led a processional in Rome where people in the processional were so afflicted with the plague that they were dying in the processional and falling by the wayside. And yet it continued. We certainly know a lot more about how viruses are transmitted these days than in the past. But we've lost a little bit of the notion that there are things more important than even our lives. This was a truth that we used to know when death was so much more prevalent, so much more normal. People used to have wakes in their homes. You didn't go somewhere special to view a body. They would put the body in the living room and everyone would come say goodbye. And the reason for that was simply that people were dying all the time. You would have large families, and you could expect that not every child would make it to adulthood. You were considered fortunate if a few did. We lived with death as a constant companion, and for that reason, we realized that there are things far more concerning than physical death. During this pandemic, we have elevated that fear of dying to a tremendous degree, one that's, I would argue, we've never seen in American history and probably Western history. The fact that we are willing to separate people from their families when they are dying for a virus which is lethal for a small slice of the population with very clear risk factors strikes me as an unnecessary cruelty. He couldn't even see his family's messages until he was so bad that they moved him, no doubt out of compassion, to a window where he could see it. And I absolutely understand the family's gratitude towards the caregivers. And I absolutely praise the compassion of those caregivers for their interaction with the family, for letting them know when he passed, for their condolences. But you cannot lose sight of the fact that something has happened to our values where we no longer respect the religious wishes of families in these situations. Perhaps this family wasn't actively Catholic. Perhaps they didn't seek it. That's all possible. But there are many other families out there who have been denied this comfort. And it's not that uncommon for close family members to be able to be present when their loved ones are undergoing significant procedures. In some hospitals, they actually allow you to observe. You have to be scrubbed up, you have to stay out of the way, etc. But you're allowed to be present, to be there for them. Not least of which, in case anything happens to go wrong, you can be there for their final moments. We've lost that in the response to this pandemic. When they talk about the new normal, one of the things I fear about the new normal is that we've lost that forever, and that we've created a culture where the dead die alone. It is a frightening thing sometimes to pass from this world. Every one of our instincts is for survival. We do not go gently into that good night as a general rule. And that's why it means so much to have someone there with us, preferably someone who loves us, who knows us, to help ease our dying moments. And how many times has it happened that families were healed at a deathbed, forgiveness granted, confessions made? It's really the last chance any of us have to do right by people. And yet so many of these people have been denied that. Now, sure, I'm certain there's no shortage of nurses who have heard these last words from the dying and faithfully transmitted them. But it's not the same thing. We've lost something there. In terms of values, we used to value what was eternal over what is merely temporal. The spiritual over the physical. And in large part, we've lost that and contented ourselves with comfort and the absence of pain as being the highest standard. We've settled for long lives rather than lives well lived. And I think this story and so many others show that we're in danger of settling for a very clinical, antiseptic death, but not a human one. When we're born, we generally come into this world, and our first interaction with it is in the loving arms of our mothers. After that trauma and anxiety and fear of the birth process, what do? They place us on our mother's chest, and she holds us, feeds us, strokes us, caresses us. So that our first experience of the world is one of love. If we value what truly matters, shouldn't our last experience of the world, to the extent that it's possible to do this, shouldn't our last experience in this world likewise be one of love? And is it not worth some inconvenience, some risk to achieve that? I think often of battlefield chaplains, those heroes who go out with our troops, who take the same risk, even more so, than their brothers and sisters around them, just to provide that final comfort, just to be there when someone passes, and to provide that scintilla of love that one can find on those dark and bloody battlefields. how grateful we are that that's possible. And I don't know about you, but I fear that if we ever lose that appreciation for the experience of love as we pass from this mortal coil, we'll lose our humanity with it. It's not about lawyers. It's not about doctors. It's not about politicians at that point. It's about a person and the people who love them. And there's only one certainty in this world, and that's that all of us will face that transition at some point in the very near future. Every single one of us. As Jim Morrison said, no one here gets out alive. If our values are properly oriented, I think we need to react to stories like this with some appreciation for the people, but also with some concern for what the facts of the case say about how our values are being transformed. If this is the new normal, I really shudder for our future. Thanks, and have a great day.